Hey, chasing faults, we're on the track, the zero's down. We're scanning the logs, what's the clue? Let's try to find out and keep it true, bringing another EV rider to you.
This week on EV Rider, something every motorcyclist that's considering an EV here in the US needs to know. By now, I had hoped to make this video a 30,000 mile review of my Zero SRF, which is model year 2020, but I ran into an issue. I came out one morning, went to charge the bike, and it showed an indicated 0%, and it wouldn't accept the charge. I've been doing troubleshooting since then, which is why you're seeing the Zero with the plastics removed. Among the first things I tried was replacing my 7-year-old 12-volt battery and resetting the BMU, but no luck. It had been at 54%. In fact, the app still showed 54%. So I went ahead, I pulled the logs, and send them to Zero. That's one of the cool things about Zero motorcycles. They do allow for a preliminary diagnosis in most cases if you can send your bike's logs into their support team. But here's the big rub. I don't have a local dealer anymore. In fact, what happened was my local Jacksonville dealer dropped them. My next closest dealer, about 80 miles away in Gainesville, Florida, also dropped Zero. So then I called the next closest dealer, which is roughly 110 or so miles away in Sanford, Florida. And guess what? They've dropped Zero as well. Now, I don't point all this out to slam Zero, but for potential electric motorcyclists, this is something that you need to know. And this, by the way, is not unique to Zero motorcycles. I did a quick check. LiveWire also is no longer carried here in Jacksonville by the local Harley-Davidson dealerships. I checked Daytona Beach, same story. They've also dropped LiveWire. So then I decided to check Can-Am, which also has a local dealership. Guess what? They don't carry the electric side of the brand either. And if you got an Energica has gone through a bankruptcy and reorganization and isn't currently supporting U.S. customers in a meaningful way, although there's at least one dealer in New England doing his best to continue supporting U.S. customers while the Italian brand regroups. Now, I'm not saying this to slam Zero, LiveWire, or any other brand, but instead, what I want to make sure that people know is if you're buying an electric motorcycle, it's not like buying a traditional Honda or Harley or Indian. You've got to be very sure about what you're getting into because these are big investments. So at this point, if I decide to have my Zero repaired, I would have to have it towed or shipped more than 200 miles to get to the next closest in-state dealer, which in my case is in Tampa, Florida. And my example isn't nearly as bad as some are facing. I believe in these products. I've been riding EV motorcycles since 2014, and I have been very happy with the customer support I've had from Zero. But right now, I'm in a lurch. The preliminary diagnosis shows that I probably need a new battery management unit. But because Zero can't communicate with the bike, it can't guarantee that is the only problem or the actual problem. Right now, I'm waiting to hear back from Zero a final time before deciding what to do. But here's the short story. If I were to send the bike to Tampa, I would probably spend $1,500 or more between shipping and an initial diagnosis due to labor costs before I would even know for certain that the BMU is the issue here. And if it's not, my bike's out of warranty. I bought this bike way back in 2019. So what am I going to do? I'll follow up. There's a good chance what I may end up doing is buying the part itself, have it shipped to Jacksonville, and install it myself. But I'm still debating that because it's a gamble, because it's not a certainty that is the only problem with the bike. Plus, Based on what I'm reading on the internet, there's a chance a BMU swap won't end up being plug and play, potentially still requiring a Zero dealer to connect to Zero's server. So even if the BMU is the only problem, I might still be stuck paying to have it shipped. And I don't do this video in any way to criticize electric motorcycles. Again, I'm a believer. I own an electric motorcycle. But I also don't believe in just being a fanboy. Instead, I want to make sure any video I do is open and honest. So for anyone considering an electric motorcycle, they go into it knowing the facts. And the facts are that in many cities around the U.S., it is not as sure a thing to have reliable service over the course of the ownership of the motorcycle as it is with the mainline traditional gasoline brands of motorcycle. If you're considering an electric motorcycle, you really want to consider how you're going to service the bike if you're a significant distance away from a dealer, or if that dealer drops the brand. So, what I would say to people considering a new Zero, Livewire, Can-Am, or any other brand in another country, if at all possible, get them to commit in writing that they will service the bike for as long as you own it. And I would say as a community, we need to put pressure on these companies to make sure they support right to repair. For example, in the case of this Zero, if I had to get a new battery pack, the part would need to be commissioned, which basically means a Zero tech would need to log in to the system to activate that battery on this bike. Now, that's fine in a city where there's a dealership with technicians, but if you're in a city or a country or a community that doesn't have that option, what do? Just food for thought. And I will be back at some point to hopefully do that 30,000 mile review on my Zero, or at least tell you the outcome in my particular case. As always, thanks for watching EV Rider, and listen, please go ahead and hit subscribe and like and maybe even the hype button on this video, so hopefully I can continue to bring you more adventures in EV motorcycling. And by the way, if you don't know, EV Rider also does a lot of automotive EV reviews. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon, whether it's on the Zero, a Dodge Charger EV, or whatever EV we might happen to have that week.